Overcoming Average. If you haven't already, subscribe and follow. I always forget to say that stuff when I do this. Check it out. Today we have Miss Stephanie with us from Corks and Boards. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So before we get too deep in, I want you to go ahead and tell your website and how we can find you, because after we get into this, we're going to hear more about it, and I'm sure people want to know. They can go look at the website while they're listening to us. So what's the website and social media? What's the best way to get a hold of you here?
So actually social media is the best. So Facebook and Instagram at Corks and Boards. And then I have a link to a link tree. I don't have a formal website.
That's okay.
Still growing.
That's okay. Yeah,
Still growing.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Facebook's the new website anyway, so it's fine.
It is. There's tons of information on Facebook. Also on LinkedIn at Corks and Boards as well.
Awesome.
So yeah.
And we're going to dig into your company more in a little bit, but I want to start it out just by, we were talking earlier about businesses and networking, and I wanted to talk about, you and I met at 1 Million Cups here in Lake Norman, and one of the other, Lake Norman Small Business Meetup.
Networks, yeah.
And I was excited to have you on because I just found your company interesting and exciting. And it was just, I think back to one of the days when you and I and Jasmine Lloyd were sitting in Old Town Public House, and we were talking about networking and how to grow our businesses and how to develop. And we were talking about, I think, a Gary Vaynerchuk book or something. We were like, we just need to create more content. So I wanted to talk to you about how your content creation's been awesome. You've really upped. There's a lot of great content on LinkedIn, especially, and Facebook. I follow both of them, and you're doing videos, and you're just I remember at that time.
I'm trying to start.
Yeah. At that time you were super not in your comfort zone.
No.
You're like, I'll never be able to do it. And now it's just so natural, and
I don't know that it's natural. So I'm glad it looks natural because it doesn't feel so, but the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm getting there. I know you were pushing me. We were like, let's create some timelines. Okay. Next week we need to have so many posts. We need to do a video, and yeah, it took maybe a year.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Is it takes some of that networking to find the right people to encourage you, to push you over the line, to say, hey, just do the video. When I watch you on the video, I think it looks very natural. It looks fine. But we just talked about how when you do it yourself, it's very
critical of ourselves.
My gosh, it's very critical.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it's great. I'm glad you're coming on. You're supporting this podcast, which ultimately I hope will support you as well.
Yeah,
and I was thinking about when we go to those networking events, we use the word support.
Yeah.
We need to support each other. We need to network. But when I just was thinking about the word support yesterday, and how when you support something or somebody, it takes weight. Mm-hmm. You have to hold the weight a little bit. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of networking events is just stuffed with people trying to get a sale, and they're just desperate for a sale. Yeah. And it's sort of sad. It really goes back to, well, what are you selling? What's the product? And is it something that people want? Or are you just trying to hustle and push something on somebody that nobody cares about? And that makes it stressful on them. Yeah. So I commend you for your efforts to push your business out there, because it is a product, I think, that's interesting. It's not something you see every day. It's not just another person doing the same old thing at these networking events.
Yeah, so, it's hard though.
Absolutely.
But I think, the networking in general and sales in general has always been hard for me. Even in my corporate experience, I was required to have sales numbers, and it was forced. You know what I mean? It was uncomfortable. Sure. It was the worst part of my job, was having to go to network events and get sales. And I think that because we've talked about this when we met, it's just kind of awkward. And we were talking about this earlier today, the way we approach our mindset going into a networking event is always to get another client, right?
Yeah.
But actually, when we change our mindset and we just talk about what we're passionate about, and we find people like ourselves, we connected on something, and we're helping and supporting each other. A friend of mine was saying yesterday, because we're independent, right? We have small businesses that we've been growing basically by ourselves. I mean, we're doing almost everything. I mean, you've got some help now, which is awesome, because we've been talking about that for a long time. But we're doing everything, and it's hard to we get wrapped up in our minds sometimes and second guess ourselves. So it's really nice to have that support, like you were saying,
For
to
sure.
continue to boost us up and move forward.
Well, and we were talking about the podcast, the name of the podcast and stuff earlier, and how, you know, it makes sense in my mind, and I need to work on like explaining it to people, but it's just, nobody wants to be average, and we want to be a little bit better than average. And when you look at people who have done things that are hard, you know, beat cancer. We've been talking about cancer a lot, unfortunately, today. People who have overcome, you know, knee surgeries to become great runners. People I've already had on the podcast. Business owners are so interesting to me because it is not an easy task. No. Every business at some point started with one person. Facebook, Uber, Google, they all started with one person with one idea. And it really matters if the idea is good. That's the number one thing. And I think that's what we're talking about is if you have a product, whether it's a service or an actual physical product, it has to be a good product. Yeah. It has to be a good service. It has to be something that people want. And then the typical sales is not the same. It's more of a revealing to the world of what you have. Like Uber was a great idea, but the timing had to be right and people had to know it was an option. The app had to be perfect and people had to know about it. And now people literally say, I'm going to get an Uber, you know?
Yeah.
And
it's like a Coke. It's like,
I'm going to use a napkin or a Kleenex, right? Yes, it's like, actually, no, it's a, you know, towel for your nose. But so it always starts with one person. And that is such a non-average thing to start a business, especially when you're by yourself. Luckily, I have a support system now that's growing of people that help me bear that burden.
Right.
And I'm glad to have you on too, because this is one of the ways I can support your business is saying, look, I'm going to take time and listen to you because I think you're an interesting person, interesting business, and give you a chance to tell your story. So with that, I wanted to go back in time and have you just tell me your origin story. Because I know you've been all over the world and traveled and stuff. So let's start from the beginning. Where did you come from and how did you get to Davidson, North Carolina?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's a journey. So I was born and raised in New Orleans. Both of my parents from Mississippi. So I got, my friends would always make fun of my parents' accents because it's a very yatty accent in New Orleans. But my parents had this twang, this country twang. And it was just funny because it was just different. So it's interesting now because of how I grew up, but then also everywhere I've lived and traveled, I have a very like bland accent. Like I don't really have an accent at all. I've got this. So which is interesting. But anyway, New Orleans, I have a brother 2 years younger and then a sister that's 11 years younger. Grew up there and then went to Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge. So I moved a little further away, but I always had this dream of getting out of New Orleans. I wanted to move. I had this dream. I started probably at about 6 or 7 years old, drawing plans of this house. As a little girl, these dreams. And it was probably a whole notebook of that, those yellow legal size notebooks, of this house that I had drawn. And at that time, I wanted it to be right in the middle of my grandfather's ranch. Okay. It was going to be right in the middle. He's like, you're not going to build this house in the middle of my field, like my beautiful field. I'm like, yep, that's where it's going to be. Anyway, it kind of changed, but I always like at 6 or 7, I had this dream of something big, right? I mean, physically it was big then, but even going into high school, I was like, I don't want to go to the same high school that all my other friends are going to. And
You didn't want to be average.
I didn't want to be average, but I was trying to find myself too,
sure.
right? So I went to another high school. So I met more friends, but still had my best friends at my other school. Then college, I'm like, no, I don't want to go to LSU. LSU, great school. I have a scholarship, but I don't want to go. Everybody's going there. So I wanted to go to Auburn. Well, I was told, well, you have a scholarship, so you should really try, right? So I was like, okay, fine, I'll try it. And then I loved it. Okay, I found my niche. I loved it. I had a great time, football,
Yeah.
And then I majored in information systems. going for the money, right? It was like the first management information systems degree in the country at the time or something, one of a couple.
What is that exactly?
Oh God, I never really used it, but you learned a lot of like coding and things like that. It was like C+ at the time.
Really?
We were just starting to build websites. So we learned some of that. I don't remember JavaScript.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I did C++ and Java.
Yes. So I don't even remember these things because I never used them.
Yeah.
And then I concentrated in internal audit because that was going to be my way out. Like I was good at building those things because I'm very detail oriented, but I couldn't see myself behind a computer.
Right.
Coding. Like it just wasn't me, but that's where the money was. So that's where I went. Like it really wasn't a passion. But money was, something that, my parents told me I needed it. It was like you listen to your parents at that time, right? And so I got a job in New York City. I'd never been there. I knew no one there. And I was like, let's do this. Like, this is going to be awesome. Okay. This is like finally my shot to get out in this world. And so my mom, I packed my stuff. My mom came with me. I actually moved in with my recruiter for a couple of months until I figured out where I was going to live. I ended up moving into Manhattan, living with her stepdaughter. And then a friend of mine that I knew from grade school ended up moving up there as well a year later. And she moved in with me. And then I got my own place down in Greenwich Village. And dude, New York is awesome. Manhattan, it was a totally different world. Like, wow, I was free, right?
Yeah.
I ended up getting a job, my second job there. I ended up traveling internationally because that was another thing that I wanted to do. Wow. So I'm like, I went for it. We were traveling all over. I worked with, it was a French-owned company, so I ended up working with a lot of French individuals, and we traveled in Europe and Brazil, and so that was awesome.
That is awesome.
And then I went to California to see my aunt, and I had spent some time in California in San Francisco as a kid with my aunt and loved it and always said, I'm going to live there one day. Well, I was there and I was just like, you know what? I think it's time. Like trees and, getting a little claustrophobic with all the concrete in Manhattan and not feeling like you can get out without a car. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. Within a month, I was there. I got a new job and packed my bags, moved cross country, was in San Francisco. Had an awesome time. I was like, wow, finally, like, yes, I'm doing this. Like I said, I was going to live here one day and now I'm doing it.
That's great.
And started in the consulting world there with Grant Thornton. Started with Sarbanes-Oxley. Do you remember this time?
No.
Sarbanes-Oxley Act. We started doing internal controls testing. And then it evolved into doing more consulting work and process improvement. And I lived in the East Bay, in Walnut Creek area. I don't know if you know the Bay Area very well, but loved it there. And then with work, somehow there was some drama at work. There was some change in management. I was getting hosed because I was a favorite of somebody that had left, and I was up for manager. And I called the national partner, head of our whole service line. I was a senior associate. Okay. I was like 4 years out of school.
Wow.
To tell him, hey, because we didn't have a regional partner at the time. Hey, by the way, I'm about to get hosed here and I deserve a promotion. So I want to make sure that you're in this meeting to make sure that I get a fair treatment, right?
Yeah.
Who did I think I was?
That's bold, yeah.
I have no idea who I thought it was, but I did it. And so I got that damn promotion.
You got it.
And
awesome.
I moved to Los Angeles for it.
Wow.
But also it was great because I got away from that old management and really, again, starting something new.
Yeah.
Lived in LA for about 5 years, lived in Santa Monica, bought a house in Woodland Hills in the Valley, which is a huge accomplishment to buy my first house, especially in LA. And then I met my husband through work. He was a client of mine, and he worked for B of A. And they were a client of mine, but it was like loan staff work where I had staff that were working out there, but they were managing them, not me. But So for sales, like I needed to develop a relationship with these people. And the only way to do that, because they weren't paying for me, was to have these happy hours, right?
Yeah.
Well, when we had the happy hour, he was the only one in the room that I didn't know. So naturally, I go and talk to him, and we started talking about travel and food and wine and, you know, the best restaurants. And, you know, he went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. I was telling you earlier about the Central Coast, California, and their wines. And so we started talking about the wines there and stuff. And so, yeah. So then we ended up a few months later, we started dating pretty much right away. And then that summer, a couple months later, we were watching House Hunters International. And we were like, started talking about moving international. Like, have you ever wanted to do this? Like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I've always wanted to do that. Like, I love to travel, and living internationally would be cool. He's like, yeah, I tried to, but they didn't approve it, blah, blah, blah. So we said, hey, whoever gets the first job internationally, the other will follow. We both agreed. So there it was.
Wow.
So that was like July or August of that year. We started dating in like March. And then by September, October, I had an opportunity to do a secondment. So my Grant Thornton's an international company, so they have offices. So I started pursuing a secondment because that was the easiest way to move.
What is a secondment?
It's like a short term or kind of long term, up to 2 year kind of engagement with another country, another office.
Okay, yeah.
And then the plan is that you move back.
Right.
Well, my plan was I wasn't moving back, but this was the easiest way to get there, right?
Yeah.
So I got the opportunity in Dublin, Ireland. So, and then Corey found a job at the bank, a local bank there. And so we moved there. 2013, January 2013, wow. I think. Yep. So we were there, enjoying life internationally. We got engaged the week that we flew there. We got engaged, then started planning a wedding in Italy and Tuscany. So life was awesome, right? We were always traveling. We were planning all these awesome things. And then I get a call from that partner that I called years ago to say, hey, by the way, I want to make sure that I get that fair treatment. He was abroad working for a different company. And I had called him when I decided that I was going to move internationally and said, hey, you know, I'm thinking about this, you know, do you know of anything? And he's like, well, I'm moving companies and moving locations. If you just give me, I don't want to stop what you're doing, but I'll let you know once I land. He's like, right now it's between Singapore and the Middle East. I'm like, well, neither one of those was on my spreadsheet. Okay. Because I'm not an accountant, my husband's accountant, but working in that same kind of field, we had a spreadsheet with the locations and healthcare and all these benefits. Right.
Yeah.
So, Middle East and Singapore were not anywhere on that list. So I'm like, that's not going to work out. So anyway, August of that year, so we moved in January, August of that year, he called me and said, I've got a job for you and your husband in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi. I'm like, shit, we haven't even been here a year. Like, I mean, we're taking advantage of every day that we're here, but I haven't had enough time here in Ireland. But you never say no to an opportunity. So we flew out there. We're like, let's give it a chance. Like, never would we have ever considered this.
Right.
So we went there to Abu Dhabi and Dubai, check it out. And hey, why not?
Right.
Right. So January, we moved. So we stayed in Ireland a year. January, we moved. Abu Dhabi. Wow, it was different. Yeah, I'm from New Orleans. I know heat and humidity, and I hate it. It's terrible for the hair. And it is 100% humidity every single day.
Really? In the Middle East?
Oh my God. It's disgusting. It's right on the Persian Gulf. So and you're right on the coast.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And it was hot, like 120, 130 during the summer. Ugh. The winter got, I don't know, you're putting on a sweatshirt when it was 80. Right? It was like, this is cold.
Wow.
But it was different. Like the culture was different. It was somewhere we never expected. So it was cool.
Was the in Dubai, was that big tower already built? The super tall?
Burj Khalifa.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the name, but wow, I bet it's amazing. Just from the images, that it used to be a desert, and now it's like one of the most fabulous places on earth.
Seriously. And you know what? You get on the highway there, and the signs are terrible.
Really?
But if you miss your exit or you take the wrong, you're in the desert, because just like you said, they built it in the desert.
Right.
So like, and it's only, I mean, it's growing fast, but I mean, a block right and there's like nothing. It's literally sand. And you're like, oh shit, how do I get back? The way that they built some of their infrastructure is interesting, but
the architecture there looks amazing. I mean, not only that tower, but the place that looks like a palm tree in the water.
The palm. There's what's the hotel that's shaped like a sailboat?
Oh yeah, the sailboat one.
I forget. It's like I don't know, 20-star hotel that doesn't exist anywhere. So it was really cool. The culture's very different, so we had to adapt, especially being a female. I mean, I would be the only female in a boardroom. I mean, with all these mostly locals, maybe a few other Westerners, but all male. And I'm sitting there trying to tell them, about their organization and give them suggestions like, oh, this isn't going so well. It was intimidating, but I'm like, yes,
that's
I can
great.
do this. You know what I mean? Like another thing, like, wow. Anyway, our boss that brought us there, Greg, he ended up moving to Central Europe, to Czech Republic, to lead the region there. And we were pretty close because we have some history and we've done triathlons and stuff in California too. So we knew each other relatively well. And so I had gone out. I had my oldest son there. He's 5 now, in Dubai, because we started in Abu Dhabi, then we moved to Dubai a year later. We spent 2 years in the UAE, and so right before I think I was going out on maternity leave, he's like, "Hey, there's our opportunity. I might be like relocating." We're like, "Hey, we're cool. Like, let us know." Like, Czech Republic, Prague was number 1 on our spreadsheet.
Was it really?
Yeah. So, and I had never been there again. But it's number 1. He called after I had birth. I think it was September or something. And he's like, okay. He's like, this is pretty much happening. I said, okay, can I just get through my 4 months of maternity leave because it's fully paid?
Yeah.
And I would like to enjoy this, not go back to work immediately. So he's like, okay, I can wait. It gave him time to get settled in the region and figure out a place for both Corey and I. Sure enough, January or February, I think, I came back from maternity leave and I had to go tell the partner, hey, by the way, I'm back, but I'm transferring. So it sucked for them.
Yeah.
But, hey, it was great for us, right?
Yeah,
so February, we moved to Prague. We lived there for 2 years, traveled more in Eastern Europe. And again, another region like Central and Eastern Europe. We had, from a work perspective, our region was 20-something countries, 30-something offices across Central and Eastern Europe. Again, like every country has a different culture and history. The history between those countries, like they still haven't forgotten. So there's a lot of still conflict even within the corporate world.
Sure.
So it was quite challenging, but it was really fun. A fun challenge. Yeah. And I got to travel and see things that we hadn't seen before, or even that were on like the short or long list, right?
Right.
And then I started studying wine. I always had this passion to do something else. Because when I went to school and studied, it wasn't for a passion.
Let me pause you for a second. So, I mean, that so far is just an amazing traveling story. And there's a lot of people in the world that's kind of their goal is to travel, and other people that are not super interested. But it sounds like your career was the catalyst to be able to do that. So
yeah, it was.
What were you doing? What was your job that afforded you the ability to do all that traveling?
Yeah. So when I left, I was a senior manager at Grant Thornton. So I led big accounts with companies like Gymboree.
And Grant Thornton's engineering.
No,
right?
Grant Thornton is accounting and
Okay.
Consulting, like business consulting.
Okay.
And I kind of started on Sarbanes-Oxley is kind of the internal controls. How do we like control like financially and risk wise? And then it just grew to like process improvement. How do we improve the process to be more efficient within an organization? And then it just kind of, the jobs just got bigger, project management, that sort of thing. And I was leading some of the bigger jobs within
Awesome.
the office. Yeah. And I was like on partner track, I had that. I also had another role for a while, which was operations manager. So I really learned how to manage the business from budgeting to forecasting, the sales and like everything, people, hiring, all of this. Like I helped run the region. And that actually was a huge benefit for me moving to another office and like internationally, because every other job since then, that operations role, because we were transforming, actually it was a transformation really from individual offices to a region. And I think it was 6 or 7 offices that we had to pull into one region, like the people, like partners wanting to now having to speak to another partner, it's a lot of politics. And I was in the middle of the politics, which sucked. But I learned so much. It was
Well, I was going
hard.
to say, the reason I wanted to dig into that a little bit is it's those sort of things not only affords you the ability to travel and go to different places, that career selection, but if we were to sit and unpack all that stuff, you're learning lots of different things.
Oh, yeah.
People, skill sets, how to manage people, accounting, finance, budgeting, movements, trying to make certain people happy, balance of different cultures, because I'm sure accounting in one country is not exactly the same in another country, even though it probably is, because math doesn't change. But that's setting you up for a multi-skilled background, which is ultimately going to lead to your current business, right? So,
yeah, it gave me a lot of skill sets that are definitely beneficial. But those next locations, well, Ireland was kind of a little bit of both, because I went out there before I moved there to win a big job with Microsoft, and they really wanted Microsoft as a client, and we won that job, and it was huge. It was the biggest job in the office at the time, and proudly, the client did tell me after the fact that we chose Grant Thornton because of you. So like, especially when I gave my notice, they're like, this is the end of the world because we wanted you, not anyone else. Anyway, it was fine. I set them up for success. And actually I brought, through my moves internationally, I brought people from California that used to work for me.
Awesome.
Which is always nice. And then, so then I started doing these transformation gigs, which was really cool. Transforming the office to be more profitable, to be just better in general, better work product, more profitable, marketing wise, our contracts, like everything. And that was fun for me. Like I love like, taking a mess, also kind of I'm like a female, so we're good at like taking a mess and like creating some structure out of it. So that was fun. So I did that in the Middle East. I did that across I started with the Abu Dhabi office, and then I did some regional work. And then the job in Prague was a regional. They were regionalizing. So those 27 offices, bring all those cultures and people into one, and being led by an expat, an American, 2 Americans, because I was working under the regional partners. So There was a lot of conflict. But I learned a lot. And then I started studying wine. So we traveled probably 2 weekends a month this whole 4 or 5 years. And it always revolved around food and wine or drink in general. And I've always wanted to, like, I've stopped in my career a couple of times, like, this isn't it. What is it? Oh, I'm going to go to culinary school in New York. Well, I can't afford to live in Manhattan and go to culinary school. Then in San Francisco, was that again? Maybe I'll go to school. No, can't afford that. You know, once you get in your lifestyle, it's like, I can't like not be making a paycheck. So then this wine thing clicked. Hey, I'm really passionate about wine now because I knew more and getting experience and exposure to European wine, you know, where it all originated. And then having friends that are from France and like just teach me a different way about wine.
Right.
Let me see if this is something. And
so you said you were studying it just
I started
casually?
Studying. So, no. So with the Wine and Spirits Educational Trust, it's based in London. It's an international organization, nonprofit organization, but they teach, they have certifications around wine, sake, and spirits. In the U.S., we hear sommeliers, the Court of Master Sommeliers. That is a very American thing. WSET or WSET or Wine and Spirits Educational Trust is international. So most people internationally are going to go down this track. So I took level 1 in London, and that was just like a basic get your feet wet. A lot of it I already knew, but some of it not. Okay, this is cool. Now let me do level 2. So then I went to Milan, and it was 3 days in Milan. Studied. There's an exam, like it's official.
Yeah.
Okay. Like we have to sit 6 feet apart, kind of like we're doing now. You know, for the exam, and it's Scantron, and it goes to London to be graded, and then like it's pretty official.
So this is legit.
Yeah, it's
training.
legit. It's not just like a little.
So what switched in your mind to say, I want to study this stuff? Like what was the thing that made you
study? It was because I wanted to still pursue my own thing and build my own business. And what was that going to be? Well, I needed it to be something I was going to be passionate. If I was going to stop my career, like change careers, right? Yeah. After I'm like making good money and in the position I am, like still partner track, all these moves kind of slows all that down, but I was happy. It was fine.
Yeah.
So I needed to make sure that I was really in it. Like, was it just that I like to drink wine and that I was interested in it? Or was it really that there was something about it that I could do career-wise?
Sure, yeah.
And my outlook totally changed. It was really level 2 where my outlook really changed because I started learning about the complexities of wine, how it's so different. You start to appreciate wine in a different way. Why is this bottle $50 and this one's $20? What is the difference? To learn about the soil, the aspect, the weather, the climate, all of these things that affects the grape growing in the vineyard, to all of the things that happen when it's after the grapes have been picked, the winemaker can do.
Yeah.
Then it's bottled, and then it could sit and age or not. All of these little things can change the wine. Even if it's the same grape from the same vineyard, can be totally different as well.
Right.
So I started to see wine in a different way. And I'm like, wow, if people only knew these things, their minds would change. Then there was one experience that really changed the way I looked. And this was before I started studying wine. We were in Sicily. We were on a trip planning our wedding in Tuscany and then went to Sicily. We had family there. My mom was with us. And we went to, there's always wine involved. So there's vineyards on Mount Etna down on the southern side of Sicily. And the gentleman that was serving us was talking to us, like he was really telling us about the family that owned it. It was called Gambino Winery. The family, the land, the wine, like how did this all come about? Why is it so different? We were eating local cheese and bread that you couldn't buy. I'm like, I need this cheese. And he's like, well, it's family made, like down the road, like whatever, right? It was this awesome experience that changed the way I experienced wine as well. So before, I was drinking the same thing, you know, cool, I'm cool with my Pinot Grigio or like whatever, right? Cabs from, you know, California. But now I was like, wow, a Nero de Avola. What the hell is a Nero de Avola? And why is it significant that it was grown in this volcanic soil? Why is it now tasting like this? And why do I like it? And what don't I like about it? That created that sparked something in me. So then I started experimenting. It was always, I was drinking something different. And then we started going to different regions and experiencing that. And then once I was in level 2, it started all like connecting, really. I was like, shit, I need to help people. Like, this is amazing. So then we decided, things happened at work and stuff. And we decided, and we had a 2.5-year-old at the time. And, you know, it's hard being away from family, that far away from family with a young child. And so we decided to move back to the U.S. We narrowed it down, again, a little spreadsheet, to 3 cities. It was Charlotte, Denver, and Nashville. All awesome cities.
Yes.
We ended up deciding on Charlotte. And, but on our way here, I'm pretty strategic and love to travel and wasn't ready quite to settle. So, and we had a bit of a package that kept us being paid for a while. So, I'm like, hey, I want to do level 3. Just so happens level 3 is available in November in South Africa, in Cape Town. And so my husband's like, what? I'm like, yeah, like, let's just go to South Africa. My classes a week. We'll say 6. It'll be like a little vacation, right? We'd been to South Africa before, loved it, wanted to go back. We weren't there long enough. It was part of our honeymoon. And I was like, this is like a good excuse, right?
Yeah.
Like sales pitch to my husband. So we went. I studied the first week. He took care of my son. They did little adventures together. Had my exam the following Monday, and then all bets were off. We moved to a vineyard in Franschhoek. We lived in this little house. They have little houses and we lived there for 5 more weeks, drinking wine. And I met some really cool people in my class. One in particular is from the U.S. She had moved there about 6 months before. And, you know, she lived in India before that. So we had this thing in common. She's marketing. She got me to start my Instagram because I was telling her about like, yeah, I really want to start this business when I get back. Like, it was a much bigger idea than what it is now at that time. She's like, dude, just start your Instagram. And I'm like, like, I don't know. She's like, just start it. And I didn't have a name. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to call it. She's like, just do it. Don't think about it. She's like, and then you need to use hashtags. And I'm like, what the hell is a hashtag? And why do I need to use it? No, I'm not using a hashtag. I don't need to use a hashtag. Yes, Stephanie, you do need to use a hashtag. Anyway, I grew a following quite quickly. Well, I was there, so it was quite interesting posting food and wine pictures every day. And then we'd go pet the cheetahs and go see this animal and that animal and the penguins. And it was just really cool. And then we got to Charlotte, and it was, where are we going to live in Charlotte? And I wanted to live in Lake Norman. I love fresh water. I love being on a boat in the lake. Grew up with some of that. My husband didn't. He grew up in LA, like concrete, maybe a little bit of grass. And so we agreed on South Charlotte. He thought, we had lived in these cities, you know, and me, I'd lived in the city since college,
right?
Big, nice, cool cities that had a lot to offer. Prague was probably the smallest of those, and we really started to enjoy that aspect of it, being smaller, more intimate, not as crazy.
Right.
which was part of selecting the cities, the narrowed down of the cities that we were going to move to. Anyway, he didn't want to be too far from uptown because he thought everything revolved around uptown Charlotte.
Right.
Because when he had traveled here for B of A, that's where he went. So that's all he really knew. Anyway, we moved to South Charlotte. And that summer, after we moved here, we rented a boat on Lake Norman for my birthday. I'm like, I want to be on the boat. He's like, okay. I'm like, this is like cool. He loved it. After that, he's like, okay, I get it. We drove through David's, downtown Davidson. He's like, yep. So then we found a house and moved to Davidson. And yeah, he's happy. Like, it's not that much further.
No.
It's cool, quaint, not a lot of traffic, mom and pop restaurants, which we like.
Yep.
I mean, there are chains, but there's a lot of mom and pops.
Well, Davidson's good about having that local feel. There's not a Chili's or a Taco Bell.
Yes, in Davidson, right.
Right.
Yeah. So we love it, and that's how we got here, and
that's awesome.
Started my business once we got here.
So you started the business with an Instagram page, right? Have you sold any clients? Had you done any services at that point?
No. So at that point when we moved here, I was going to open a wine bar. A very European style wine bar where I could hands-on teach people about wine. So not just serve like this person wants a Pinot Grigio because that's all they know. No, I want to help you explore the huge world of wine.
Yeah.
And I was going to do a few classes. I had these ideas. I was out there looking at properties. I mean, even before I moved here, I was in touch with, 6 months or a year before I moved here, I was with a real estate agent looking at, at where it was going to happen. And then I found a property that I really liked in Noda. Noda didn't really have anything wine related at the time. A really cool, hip area. Open-minded people. But something about it felt like I had a 2.5-year-old. I didn't have a full-time job, so I was required to kind of be a stay-at-home mom as well. I had him in part-time school, but part-time school is like 2 hours. It's like a joke.
Yep.
It was stressful. I didn't know many people here. I'd been studying the market, but I didn't really know. It's from afar, right?
Right.
So I was like, shit, am I biting off more than I can chew? And we were personally investing in this. So it's like our savings and okay, let me start small. Like maybe I should slow down a bit because I'm always going 100 miles an hour. Let me slow. So then I met a woman, and it's a brand called Scout and Cellar. It's clean wine. So it's organic. Now, there can be over 200 and something additives in wine, which makes some people, it affects some people, like they can't sleep or they get an allergic reaction or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I spoke to this lady twice. It's like a multi-level marketing company, and I'm not into that. I'm not into sales. Right. I already told you that. And I'm like, okay, well, it might be an easy, like, kind of break the thing, like, just get me moving. Yeah. Start somewhere, right? And with that, you do these house parties, like you do wine tasting parties. Well, financially, it just didn't work out. But through those parties, I was able to teach people. And I was able to let my passion out. And I was so happy doing that. I was like, okay, now how can I capitalize on this, but not with Scout and Cellar? What do I like about what I'm doing? And I knew I didn't like the sales part. Okay, I like teaching people. So then it transformed into education and experiences, because my whole thing is about the experience, not just serving someone wine and them being like, no, I don't like this. Right. Well, you don't even know anything about it. Right. So maybe if I told you something, you might actually like it.
Yeah.
Because you know the origin or the blah, blah, blah. So I started teaching. I did a number of events. At the end of last year, I did a couple private events. I started doing so the name is Corks and Boards, and it's all about food and wine because that's really my passion together. I did a couple of events down in South Charlotte in the end of 2019 with a friend of mine who does more of the board stuff. She sells these beautiful boards. And so she'd kind of talk about the decorating aspect. And then I'd talk about the wine and the pairing and go through this experience about pairing the food and wine. It's great. And then I'm like, I need to do more education. So then I developed an education series, launched that, which was great. So now it's all about these experiences and education. And that's kind of how it's evolved. And one day, maybe I'd love to have a wine bar.
Sure.
And I'd love to teach with set classes. Right now, because of the pandemic, they're not, technically I can teach level 1 and 2 with my certification, but you have to get like approved. You have to go through it.
Yeah.
A training.
Well, talking about the education, I know coffee, which is in a lot of ways similar.
Yeah.
When I was in college, my dad used to just drink black coffee, Folgers or Maxwell House or something. And I just used to always think it was cool that he would just drink coffee, but I would taste it. And I was like, ugh, this is no good. And then my brother got a job at Starbucks and he had to go through the training. And I remember he brought home, the one that sticks out to me is Komodo Dragon. They have a coffee called Komodo Dragon. And my brother said, yeah, they say this one's supposed to taste like floral. And I was like, coffee that tastes like flowers?
Yeah.
And so I was in my last couple years of college and he would get the free bag of coffee every day. So we had Komodo Dragon, we had Sumatra and all these different ones. So I was kind of spoiled with pretty decent coffee.
Right.
At least this is, a while back. So there was no local coffee chains and stuff. Starbucks was like the thing and up and coming, So I'm drinking this stuff and I was like, I can taste the flower.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's taken literally years to evolve my coffee palate. But I remember when I went backwards and somebody had Folgers Crystals Instant Decaf. It's not even the same thing.
No.
It's not even the same thing. So now I've sort of adapted to where I can taste the difference in Summit and Counterculture and Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of myself for that. But yeah, knowing about it, I remember distinctly when my brother was saying, look for these notes. At first I was like, I don't know. It just tastes like coffee to me.
Yeah.
It tastes like dirt to me.
Yeah.
And then the smell and putting it together. I think that you're totally right. And just the story and the education and the understanding of what you're about to experience, it opens it up to a bigger, like, oh, I do actually like this flavor more. Right. Because people don't know what they like. They have to be told in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And learning how to taste it. And coffee and wine is very similar. Like with the notes, like you were saying, coffee, like when professionally tasting coffee and tasting wine is like almost the same.
Yeah.
Different profile of notes you're going to get, but you have to put it in your mouth a certain way so that all your taste buds and different parts of your mouth are going to experience different flavors, different ways. So if you're just like chugging it back, like you're not going to experience it. Like you're not going to get everything. Yeah. You're going to feel those tannins. You're going to get that aftertaste, but you're not going to get that full experience. So you don't really like, you're saying you don't like it or you do like it, but not in its full capacity.
Well, and I think it's the question of what am I missing out on? Because again, I'm no coffee expert, but now that I feel like I can tell the difference in this coffee and that coffee, now I can say, I prefer this over that.
Yes.
But let me ask you, this is more of a technical question, but why is it that certain things, like I know in the bourbon world, bourbon is like 4 ingredients. There's no special additives. It's just corn and rye and water and sugar or whatever. They're like 3 or 4 things that's in there. And the flavors that come from that, like it or not, literally comes from sitting in a wooden barrel for years. How is it that something like that, with that simple ingredient, can have such a drastic change in flavor, literally depending on where you are in the world? Because I know, for instance, there's a documentary on bourbon called Neat, which is really great. And then there's another one called Scotch. And with bourbon, you probably know all this stuff, but with bourbon, it has to be an American oak barrel that's charred, and it has to be new. You can't reuse it or it's not bourbon, right? But then Scotch is made from the old whiskey barrels that the Americans can't use again. So we ship them over there and then they make scotch out of it. But how is it that with those simple ingredients, like a grape, that it can have such a diverse taste?
Yeah.
Like, what is it about those things that makes them sort of have that wide range of flavors?
And that's what's so amazing about wine and these other like coffee, the way coffee's grown, where it's grown in the world, how it's roasted, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with bourbon and whiskey. Same thing with wine. Wine is one ingredient. It's great.
Yeah.
Now, in certain parts of the world, and depending on the quality of the wine, they add all these things. Like I said earlier, it can be over 250 additives to stabilize a wine, to get it to have the flavor profile, not the notes, not like black cherry versus a red cherry, but the tannin, the acidity, the sweetness. They can like alter it and then stabilize the wine over time. It is just a grape. And that's what's so amazing, is because first it's the soil. So what is the soil type and what does that particular vine like? Does it need more water? Does it like to thrive? Whatever. Does it need to be more warm than cool? Like different soils can do that. In Rhone and some other areas, you see these big stones in the soil, in the tops of the soil. That kind of protects the vines to keep them warmer. But it's cool at top, but it just protects the soil.
Is there can you see a region and expect a flavor?
Yes.
Okay.
So once you start studying, so soil is one, climate is another. Aspect on a mountain, how much sun is it going to get? Does it get fog or not? How much heat? Then you've got, so that's all like where it's from. There's some aspects of where it's from. And then it's everything that happens in the winemaker does to it.
Sure.
But yes, you can tell. So cool climate, the easiest way is to think cool climate versus warm climate.
Right.
And then you can say, okay, in a cooler climate, let's break it down. In a cooler climate, when we're growing any kind of fruit or vegetable, but let's think about a fruit because it has more sugar in it. Is it going to be more acidic or more sweet in a cooler climate? Probably more acidic, right? Because heat helps ripen things. So in a hot climate or a warmer climate, that grape is able to get more sugar and sweetness and depth of flavor because it's cooking more on the vine. But then when you think about the fog, like in southern Napa and Sonoma, along the coast with the San Pablo Bays underneath, they get a lot of fog. So even though it might be hotter during the day, they get so much fog that it only is ripening and getting hot for like 4 or 5 hours. And then it's cool. So it doesn't ripen as quickly as, let's say, the central coast of California, where some parts of it are hot most of the day.
Yeah.
And some grapes like one or the other, and some are just different profiles. So you get a Pinot Noir from Los Caneros, southern Napa, and then you get a Pinot Noir from another region that's warmer. The profile is a little bit different. So climates, you can anticipate the type of fruit characteristics that you're going to get. Yeah. Which is cool. Because when you think about Chardonnay, right? Chardonnay is a cool one to think about because California Chardonnays, typically they do put them in oak. So they're buttery and like heavy. But that's only because of what the winemaker did to it. As a grape though, Chardonnay is cool with being in a cool climate or a warm climate. In California, it's warmer. So the fruit variety is going to be more yellow, like a yellow apple versus a green apple. In a cool climate, it's going to be green apple. So let's think Chardonnay grapes are grown in France in Champagne. It's used in a lot of Champagne. Champagne is not super fruity. It's very acidic, and the fruit is more green, more sharp flavors than more riper flavors. So it's cool to think about it. So
That's
once
crazy.
you start learning these things, you can anticipate. Like you look at a wine list and it's like, okay, we've got 4 different Chardonnays.
Yep.
I know that I don't like those big, buttery, woodsy Chardonnays.
Yeah.
I like a Chablis, a very crisp one. So I can, even if I don't know the regions that are on the wine list, I can think about where is it located. Okay, now I know what kind of climate's there. What do I think about it? I might not know exactly, but you can guess.
Sure.
And then I can figure, oh, maybe I'll like this because I know I like that profile.
A couple of months ago, my wife and I did I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a master class from masterclass.com and there's like a wine guy. You probably know the one I'm talking about, but he was talking about some of these things, not as in as much detail, but I remember one particular thing, and it was such like a moral for life. And he was talking about this particular grape, this particular vine suffers. Like
they need to suffer.
It's like it needs to suffer.
Yes.
And it's like the worse that vine's life is, but it still survives, the better the grape. And I just thought that's such a, we were talking earlier about going through tough things, starting a business, dealing with, just life, especially with today and all the craziness. When you face something and you go through something that's difficult, you literally rewrite and remap your brain and you become a better person. And I think it's so funny that even a grape, even wine can sort of reflect like this grape is going to make great wine because it suffered. I
know, isn't it sad?
I thought that was so like profound in the world, but
we all have to suffer to get
to become the better thing, you have to suffer.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but
it's true. We are like grapes.
Yeah. It's so funny. And I think that's what's so fascinating about not only your business, but just, wine, whiskey, coffee, is that something like a coffee bean or a grape you can learn so many lessons from it. And there's so much to get out of that one little thing that you could walk by, you step on a grape and never pay attention to it. But that little grape has the potential to just have unlimited possibilities. Yeah. And I wonder that too with other fruits and vegetables and things like that haven't been fully explored. But so I know this is probably a weird question, but why grapes? Like of all the fruits and stuff, like why is it that wine has stuck out as like, and of course there's like whiskey and stuff too, but why is there not alcohol made from oranges and stuff that has taken on the capacity that wine has?
Gosh, I don't even know.
And is it even possible? Is an orange, is an apple, do they do the same types of things?
Apples make cider, right? So they make cider from apples.
Yeah.
There's some fermentation that happens with the sugar and the yeast, and we get alcohol. I don't know about the others. It's a really good question.
I just
I'm trying to think, Yeah. People are, especially we live in the South, so people do gravitate towards sweeter things, so sweeter wines. So there are some wines that are made, and I don't know exactly how they're made, but fruit wines like a strawberry wine or whatever.
So are those the additives then? When you're saying additives,
yeah, I don't know how they make. I don't know if they're using real like fruit juice, and I don't know if they're using it after they ferment the grape juice to make the wine, and then they add this flavoring. I'm not even sure. I haven't looked into that, but it's a good question. I'm just not into that.
Yeah.
And I don't consider that wine. So
Right. Well, that's I know it was an odd question, but I've thought that like, why does the grape get so much glory? Why,
Yeah.
But isn't that, it's funny how that sticks out.
It is, but from history, they've been making wine since BC.
Right. Exactly.
It's been around forever. It's evolved.
So speaking of suffering and struggling and stuff, again, I want to commend you for your social media and all that stuff, especially in this time.
Yeah.
And I think that your story speaks to when life kind of throws you something, you move, you just get around it, you find a way to make that thing happen. Yeah. So in this pandemic, I've noticed a lot more social media activity from you. How's that working out for you and your business?
Good. Well, I had a baby during the pandemic.
That's
right
true,
in the beginning.
yes.
So at the end of March, we were in lockdown.
Yeah.
And so I had my last education class the second week of March. I was like, oh great, I'm planning 2 weeks before the baby comes to relax. That didn't happen because then we were on lockdown. I had my oldest son at home too. preparing for a baby. And, I was going to take a break from work, and I really set myself up. I worked my ass off to do a lot of education. I did a food and wine pairing dinner here in Cornelius for Valentine's Day. That went really well. Trying to propel myself forward so that I could take a month or two off and not I knew I would have to do some more posting, but kind of relax. It's stressful,
right?
Adjusting, right? And I did take a little bit of time off, but then I had to quickly think because the world was changing.
Yes.
I'm like, oh my God, how is my business going to change? And it was either just forget it or adapt. Get your ass up and figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was all this virtual stuff. Then I started seeing tastings and all this stuff going virtual. And I'm like, well, why can't I do it virtually?
Right.
So during the summer, I did my education, my level 1 series. I did it virtually. It was different. I wasn't serving wine, so it was a little more challenging for an individual to do it because they had to get the wines. We weren't tasting as many wines. But it's still they learned a lot. It was just the same, but just a little different. I like to get in front of people and move around and engage. So that's it's different.
Well,
on Zoom.
I think that the great thing about this is we talked earlier, again, before we started the podcast, about taking the good and the bad and kind of filtering, there's going to be bad stuff in life. There's going to be good stuff. But to say, okay, pandemic, it stinks, but what can we learn from this? Well, I'm in IT, so I have known what Zoom is for a long time. Right. And now everybody in the world knows what Zoom is.
Yeah.
I don't prefer to have a Zoom meeting.
Right.
I just don't. But it has opened up the world to say, your business can now reach a little further. You can talk to more people, different times.
Yes.
You can, you could do your business at night after the baby's asleep if you wanted to. It gives you the flexibility that previous generations just didn't have. And the pandemic stuff has sort of forced people to adapt and open up their mind to, this can work.
Yeah.
At least for now. And if it's a seasonal thing, let's say 2 years from now, you take the good with the bad, you're doing some in person and doing some virtual.
Right.
And now you know how to do both.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I did that first education, it did expand my reach because I had somebody from DC joining. And I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Then a friend of mine who works for a big accounting firm was like, hey, we're doing this. We have this virtual learning thing during the summer. Usually we get together in person, but we're going to do it all remote. Would you be interested? We're doing these happy hours. I'm like, yeah. So I did that. It was 800 people, I think.
Wow.
No, maybe 4 or 5 ended up attending. 400 or 500 ended up attending. We did it in 2 sessions, one for West Coast, one for East Coast. I was like, whoa, this is powerful.
That's awesome.
Now I'm in front of the whole country, not just social media, but in person through Zoom.
Sure.
Giving them that experience. And I got super, a lot of good feedback. And I'm like, okay, I need to do more of this.
Yep.
One, it's more people, bigger reach, bigger impact for me in helping people, empower people to drink better wine and really understand from the grape in the vineyard to the glass, what's in that glass, right? So then I started promoting this corporate stuff. So I've changed my marketing a little bit. I haven't done any more pure education program yet, but hopefully in the spring I will. I've just been so busy with corporate stuff.
Yeah, that's great.
Some private as well, some private events through Zoom, and then fundraising. All the fundraising is going virtual. So it's a great opportunity.
I love to see you adapt. And I love, especially the nature of your business is it's not a necessity. It's fun. It's enjoying life. Yeah. And we need that right now. People need to relax and have fun and do something that's just because, and let's celebrate the people and the wine. I know happy hours and stuff at one of my old co-working spaces. You just would meet people you'd never would have talked to before, find things in common. So I'm happy to see you adapting and growing and having something to look forward to. That's
Yeah,
a
it's
relief.
fun.
Yeah.
Like I would prefer to be in person, but
Sure.
honestly, I probably, that would be harder and more expensive for them to pay for me to go do an event. That would be more expensive than, so it's.
Exactly. And the power of the internet. I mean, again, as a technology guy, I talk a lot with people that come on the podcast, whether they're tech savvy or not. It's like whatever the thing you have that you're passionate about, if you're not using the internet, you're just not reaching the people. If you really are passionate about it, you need to sort of adapt to, this is what you need to do. I've talked to, accountants, pastors, whatever. It's like, if you really believe in your message, and you want to help people.
Yeah.
On a bad day, we put a podcast out and 50 people listen, 60, 100. That's a pretty nice filled room of people that listen to you.
Right.
Share your passions. And then we obviously throw stuff on YouTube, and you just reach as many people because you believe in what you're selling. Kind of like we talked about in the beginning, something that you really, this is not a used car salesman pitch. This is I think this product is going to impact your life and make your life better.
Right.
I want to share it, and this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
and that's like all about like my job and my transition and my, my journey to where I am now from a career-wise standpoint, was finding something that I was passionate in that I didn't feel like I was selling. I mean, it's natural. And then how is it different? Because it's always, how is your product different? And mine's an experience. It's not a physical thing, but I'm teaching, there's education, and then we're applying that education in a tasting, not just tasting. And I'm just going to tell you what you're tasting. I'm going to tell you what you're smelling. Great. Thanks. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, did you learn anything?
Yeah.
Probably not. I mean, you probably didn't learn anything, but when I teach you how to taste like a professional, I give you the technique, and then we're going to actually do it, and we're going to write tasting notes. That is powerful.
Yeah. That's a lot more powerful.
And that's what I'm doing. And that's, I'm still working on my marketing to get that message across. That's how I'm different. But
it's very clear to me. I mean, even to relate that same thing to business, when we were talking earlier about, networking and supporting other people's businesses, I was just telling a story about somebody who was pitching recently, and it's just like, it just feels like they just read the business book and they're regurgitating. They didn't get anything out of it. Yeah. They're just saying, yes, we're making meaningful content and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you don't actually believe that, do you? You're just saying what you know you have to say.
That's how I used to be in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God.
And it's just, I've been reading books and exploring like meaning. What does meaning mean? Mm-hmm. And meaning boils down to something that will change how you act, something that will change the way you think about stuff. And so something as simple as, I guess not simple as wine, but starting a business, drinking wine, you have an experience that says, I'm going to treat this different. I can think about this different. Mm-hmm. I can open my mind up to, maybe I would like this now that, Stephanie's come in and explained why or where it came from. Yeah. The stories are really important. I think the stories of people, and I'm really thankful for you coming, sharing your story with us.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stephanie Roberts, Corks and Boards. So we're going to break, and then we're going to do a wine tasting, right? I'm so excited. Yeah. So awesome. Well, thanks for this. So again, at Corks and Boards.
At Corks and Boards on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then there is a website there, but it'll link you back to the same thing. And then my email is corksandboards@gmail.com. And they can email me. And
awesome. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And like I said in the beginning, I'm terrible at this. I'm trying to get better, but overcomingaverage.net is the website. There's not a lot there, but it'll get you to the podcast, the YouTube channel. So like and subscribe, share. That is the support of our local community and our networking, is helping Stephanie grow her business, saying, I believe in what she's doing. I do. I'm going to share this. We'll share it with everybody, and hopefully you'll get some more people.
Thank you for doing that, Chad.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Well, let's drink some wine.
Let's drink.
Awesome. So we're back, and Stephanie's got some awesome stuff here. So walk us through this. Let's do it.
Okay. So I chose a sparkling for us, a Cremant, and I'll tell you more about Cremant. And a rosé, because who doesn't love rosé? Sparkling is kind of one of my favorites, and it's just fun.
What's the difference in sparkling wine
I'll go ahead
and
and start because
yeah, please.
we're thirsty.
And what's the sparkling wine and I can't think of the word. Champagne.
Yes.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Okay, so they're both sparkling, obviously, but champagne. So when you refer to champagne, it's not always, but it should be referred to only the Champagne region in France.
Okay.
So legally, you should not be able on a bottle. It should not say champagne unless it's from Champagne, France. So then you've got, this style of wine is made all over the world. They call it different things in different places. In Italy, it's called Prosecco. In Spain, it's Cava. In the U.S., sparkling wine. South Africa, it's called MCC, Method Cap.
Sounds like we got the worst name. Sparkling wine.
Boring.
So boring compared to...
Let me just real quick while I'm doing this.
Yeah.
The proper way to open off to the side, 45 degree, and turn the bottle, not the cork, and make sure your thumb is over this. So you just open the cage.
Wow.
So some people are like, oh, it's like spewing everywhere, and the cork goes flying, and someone...
Yeah, 45 degree angle and turn the bottle, not the cork.
Turn the bottle. But make sure as soon as you start untwisting the cage, thumb over the cork.
Okay.
Because sometimes it could come loose. And then
Awesome.
when you pour it, if you pour it to the side as well, you get less of the fizz on top.
Now, do wines have... do they go in and out in popularity? Because I feel like rosé is on the upswing of popularity.
Yeah, it has been super popular in the past few years, rosé. It's always really been around, but because it's becoming more popular, we are just drinking more of it. Plus, like with the weather, honestly, a lot of people associate rosé with the summertime. You can drink rosé all year long because rosé is actually made from different types of grape varietals.
Is it a mix of red and white, or is it a different grape?
It can be a mix of red. It can be the same. So this is 100% Pinot Noir. So Pinot Noir as a red wine, mostly. Pinot Noir can make a rosé still, and it can actually make a rosé sparkling. And this is 100% Pinot Noir. Wow. You can actually make white wine from black grapes as well. You take skins before you press it. You take the skins off because the skins what gives it the color. The juice of every grape is clear.
Awesome. Cheers.
So cheers. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah.
I'm
so
happy
how do I do this? Just drink.
Yeah. Bubbles, if we were going to do this whole tasting like a professional thing, Bubbles is funny because it kind of fizzes in your mouth. And when you swish it the way you need to swish, if you drink too much, it's going to come spewing out of your mouth. Yeah. So I'm not going to make you do that. Just taste it and...
Oh, very good.
You might kind of push it to the front of your mouth a little bit.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get some of that flavor and just get it going. You might taste the acidity, like if it's your mouth watering on the sides. Yeah. That's the acidity in the wine.
It is, yeah. So here's another question for you. So in that master class, the guy was using different words for those notes, and it was so obscure. He was like, he would say it tastes like dried cherries, and I was like, how can he taste it? They're dried.
Because it's more concentrated fruit. So if you take a cherry, like maybe during the summer, and you've got a red Bing cherry, a black cherry, and then take a dried cherry. They had dried cherries at the supermarket. I love to put them in my yogurt, but and taste them. The fruit concentration, the sugar concentration is different, and the fruit flavors between the red and the black are different. It takes time. Tasting wine, just like tasting coffee, just like tasting bourbon and whiskey, you have to practice all the time. And when every single time you drink, you should go through this process of evaluating it, whether it's just in your head or it's on paper. you have to keep the practice up, just like everything else, like riding a bike or like whatever, like a sport.
I feel like in that, I can't remember the wine. This is embarrassing, but it's Pinot Grigio or something. He said grapefruit, and it's like as soon as he said it, I could taste it.
Yes.
And then I was thinking, is it because it actually tastes like that, or is it because the word association? Is it like, in practicing, do we need to be told what to look for when drinking wine, or?
No. So there is a really great, Wine Folly is a great resource for wine. They have a lot of like posters, they have books, they have all types of resources, a lot of different articles online, but they have this wheel. And it's an aroma and flavor wheel. Cool. And I just ordered one. It hasn't arrived yet. I've been talking about it, and I reference to my students to their website when we're doing tastings through Zoom. But it's a wheel that has all of these flavors, and it's not it's not as specific as like cooked dark cherries, black cherries or whatever. But you've got your green fruit, you've got your stone fruit, your citrus, and there's stone fruit, like a peach, like a nectarine. Stone fruits, yeah.
Awesome.
Then you've got like your tropical fruits, which is like your papaya, your pineapple. Yeah, so it's helpful when you're starting to have this wheel or this list to reference,
just
because it's hard. There's so many different flavors and aromas out there. Some of them, which I still don't even know what like a gooseberry.
Right. I'm like, I don't even know if I've
what
had
the
a
hell
gooseberry.
is a gooseberry? But through tasting and through hearing people say gooseberry internationally, like when I was in South Africa, some of the people knew what a gooseberry was there. Yeah. And so when we taste a Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough or from New Zealand, gooseberry is this very apparent flavor and an aroma. And so now I can kind of pick it out. I can't really explain to you what it is,
right.
But when I smell it or taste it, I can gooseberry.
Yeah. Awesome.
But all of our palates and our sensitivities for smell and our palates are all different. So just because he smelled a grapefruit doesn't mean that you're going to smell a grapefruit. I mean, maybe in your head now you do, and maybe you do because it really is there, but he needed to remind you or point it out, but maybe you don't. And that's okay. That's not black and white.
Yeah. Sure.
Which makes it interesting and that more difficult, right? Like if you read a tasting note on anything, on food, a dish at a restaurant, or wine, or a beer, they're all going to be a little bit different.
Yep.
That's because we all have different palates.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this Cremant. So Champagne, I told you, is from the Champagne region of France. It's the most expensive, highest quality sparkling wine you can get around the world. But Cremant, I think, is the best value that you can get in sparkling wine.
Okay.
Period. It is made in other regions of France outside of Champagne in the same traditional method as Champagne. Maybe some different grapes because in different regions they're growing different grapes. And it's been approved certain regions of France to make Cremant. This one's from Alsace. It's an area on the eastern side of France bordering Germany. And they make really awesome wines like Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Riesling, Gewürztraminer. And they're very, it's not a warm region. I mean, it's kind of north. But for some reason, they do get warmer days. So the fruit there, the concentration of fruits, they're very floral and bigger bodied wines from a white perspective than you would get some other places that are much cooler. And they make really good Cremant. It's like the most popular region in France for Cremant. And I've been to Alsace, so I have a personal connection there. That's where I really learned about French wines, was at a independent vintners event, 600 independent vintners from around France. I really learned about French wine there.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about Champagne there. But I also found Cremant. So here, this bottle is like $25. You can get it at Total Wine. And Lucien Albrecht, the producer here, is actually, he was the grandfather of Cremant in Alsace. Like, this is the first producer. He really himself, and it was probably early 1900s, really pushed for this designation because they were making sparkling, but they weren't known for it. And they didn't have a name for it because they couldn't call it champagne. So it's really cool history here that this is the first producer, and really he himself pushed for this designation. And I think it's a beautiful wine. I mean, for $25 to get the same traditional method as champagne, which means the first fermentation is in like a stainless steel tank, and then they ferment it again in the bottle. So each individual bottle, when you think about the price of champagne bottle, I mean, I don't know, you're probably not going to get anything decent for under $80. These bottles, the second fermentation, they sit there for at least 11 months, and they have to be turned every so often. And then they have to like, they pop the cork to get the yeast out because they're sitting like upside down at an angle. So all the dead yeast goes to the bottom. They freeze the neck, they pop it out, and they put the cork on it and sell it. So imagine how much cost is associated with it
Just
sitting.
the labor and the waiting.
The labor and how much space it takes for storage.
So it has to cost $80.
Oh, it has
basically.
to. And I mean, for champagne, think about the land price too.
Right.
So anyway, I mean, when we start to learn to appreciate like wine, we start to appreciate the price of wine too. Like, what's its journey?
Yeah.
What's its journey? How long has it taken? What happened to that grape?
Yeah.
How long has that vine been growing there? Is it just 10 years old, or is it 80 or 100-year-old vine? Then it's producing less. So you need more land to produce it.
Yeah.
It's complex. But anyway, do you like this one?
It's fantastic.
Do you like it?
Yeah. It's a beautiful color.
It's a beautiful color. The bubbles are beautiful. Like, the feel in your mouth is so silky and elegant, I think. Sometimes, see, the bubbles are very small and they're still going. With certain sparkling wines, some lesser qualities, the bubbles are going to be bigger. They're going to be less bubbles. It'll stop bubbling sooner. So this one still's got some beautiful bubbles, and for $25, I mean, yeah. I use this one in some of my classes as well because I love to teach people about Cremant.
Yeah.
And I think it's an awesome value, and I love pink.
Well, and with the holidays coming up as well, it seems like a very good holiday celebration wine. You know?
It is, and because it's made from Pinot Noir, and because it's rosé, it's sat on the skin, so it's more complex in flavor than a white sparkling. The skins give it more complexity. It gives it more flavor profile. So we're getting more strawberries and cherries versus just citrus flavors.
Yeah.
So it can go with food. Like, you can drink this. We actually drink a rosé, not this exact brand, but a rosé Cremant through Thanksgiving meal. One, because I didn't open a bottle soon enough because I was cooking everything, and I was just so busy cooking and making sure timing was going to work. And it was 3:00 by the time we ate. That we drank it through the whole meal because it goes well with everything, and we'll taste as we talk here.
That's right. So let's dig into this stuff. So what do we have on the board?
So I have this is a goat cheese, and it has like a red wine. It was soaked in red wine. This is a dark chocolate with almonds and sea salt. And I want to know your experience here because I had a class, a food and wine pairing, a week or two ago, and this was a big hit with this wine.
Okay.
Then we've got some citrus. So this is acidity, and it refers to like the acidity of wine and how, it's a simple flavor, lemon or orange. But when I teach about the principles of food and wine pairing, we break it down to those single flavors. Usually I wouldn't use a cheese, but we're having cheese. And then we've got, this one's a Manchego, Spain, some almonds, a blue cheese, and some crackers. So Yeah, just have a taste. So when we taste food and wine, this is a process because it's a process. Okay, think about, I love to have you think about an experience. Have you ever brushed your teeth and then gone and had a glass of orange juice?
Yes.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay. That is the combination of spice from the toothpaste. You've coated your mouth when you eat. Your mouth is coated with whatever flavors that you're eating. And it, what it does to your palate is it equalizes it to those flavors. Okay. So your palate is then used to spice. Okay. It is heightened in awareness of spice. Then you go and take something that's super acidic. And that reaction between the spice and the acid is a bad one, and we don't do that. Okay. So it's the same thing in food. So if I was eating something super acidic that would have flavors of lemon or whatever, if I was eating something that's spicy and then I mixed it with a wine that was super acidic, it would give me that same exact reaction. So you don't do that. If you're eating something spicy, you want to, like maybe you would drink milk, right? Milk would just coat your mouth and it would make the spice go away.
Okay.
So it's the same thing with wine. We would want to choose now wine. We don't have milky wine, but we have wines that have less acidity and more fruit or sweeter. Some wines have more residual sugar than others. You want to pair it with that because it reduces the spice level. So this whole like principles of food and wine pairing is really what's the reaction of the components, the food flavors and the components of the wine and how do those react?
Okay.
And so I can tell you what the principles are, but then we need to try it because your palate and my palate are different.
Right.
So you might like something and I don't.
So I might like toothpaste and orange juice.
You might like it because you like this crazy feeling in your mouth of like you're just on fire. And some people do, and that's cool. So you would definitely pair your spicy food with like a Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, let's do it. What do we try? What do we pair?
Whatever you want. So I want you to taste everything eventually, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe we want to try this one last just because it's chocolate, but try your acid.
Okay.
Maybe we should have gotten some napkins here.
That's okay. We'll just throw it on here. So food and then. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't tell you the technique. Sorry. So you take your food, you chew, but don't swallow it yet. Once you get it to a point, take a sip, small sip. And now experience it together and swallow. And then you determine, okay, the wine tastes a certain way on its own. The food tastes a certain way on its own. The point of food and wine pairing is for them together to taste better than they did on their own. So
with the orange, it was a little sweeter. The wine was sweeter.
Yes. So with this, it's going to be a little bit different because that has more sugar than this acid.
Yeah, it just enhances the lemon. And the lemon enhances the wine.
Yeah, because it's both acid to acid. I mean, there's acid in this wine. There's not as much acid in this rosé as there would be if it was a white. But it mutes the flavors. The two acids together doesn't make it more acidic. It just kind of like mellows it out and rounds it out a little bit more, which is cool.
Yeah.
So you can, if you have a super acidic dish and you pair it with a very acidic wine, then they're just going to merge and like meld really well together. So, okay.
All right. So what's next?
Let's just do it with a cracker. Like these aren't salted. Usually there's a salty component. A lot of these cheeses have salt, but if we were doing the basics, I would just have salt granules or potato chip, like a salted potato chip.
It's awesome.
Just kind of the same, you know, it's just
neutral.
Fine. Yeah. And this isn't a salted. So try the salted almonds,
Okay.
and that'll give us some more salt. So we'll see what that does. They're not too salty, but.
It's very good.
It's good. I mean, a lot of in Europe, where I really, actually in Prague, where I really learned to drink sparkling. Not every day, but a lot of days. We had a neighbor. She was from France, from Lyon, and she is the one who taught me. Her and another friend in Prague, who's actually American, who is actually the one who brought us to this French vintners thing in Alsace, taught us, don't save your sparkling wine or your champagne or whatever. Any day can be a celebration.
Right.
With each other, with friends, with family, by yourself, whatever. Don't save it. One,
Right.
it doesn't age. For the most part, sparkling wines don't age. Drink them. Don't keep them in your cabinet. They're going to go bad. I mean, there are exceptions to that rule, but
Right.
for the most part, we're not drinking those wines. So drink them. And that's why I love Cremant, because you can drink something that's high quality without the price. You know, we drank a lot. We probably bought like 5 or 6 cases of champagne when we went to Alsace that year. And champagne specifically, it was much cheaper to buy there. I mean, a bottle that we had spent $25 on there is sold at French Laundry for $150 on their wine list. So,
Wow.
and we drink it any day of the week. Like somebody would come over and be like, okay. And we'd be like, no, you want to say that? No, I don't. We're going to we're going to drink it right here.
Yeah, that's great. Like in that documentary I was mentioning, the Neat, the whiskey documentary, the guy, he's one of the head distillers at Buffalo Trace. His father had worked there for decades, and somebody gave them this bottle of Pappy Van Winkle. It was worth thousands of dollars, and they were like, oh my gosh, we need to save this. And his dad said, no, we're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so he and his brother and his father drank the bottle, and his father and brother passed away like 2 months after.
Yeah.
He said, today, you celebrate today.
Yes.
So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ever since then, there are some wines that need to age, and that's
Right.
fine. We'll age them, but for the most part, just open and enjoy.
So is it better to buy, if you find one you really like, buy the case or just buy the bottle? What's
It depends.
preferable?
Like this one is readily available. So, I mean, I don't buy multiples. I use it in a lot of my classes. You can get it.
Yeah.
If you're at a winery where it's small production, or you're traveling and it's not something that's in a store that you're finding, then I would buy more. My husband likes to limit me on how much I buy,
Yeah.
which I don't like. But yeah. So it's kind of up to you and your
if you
budget.
buy it overseas, you have it shipped, I assume. Would they ship it for you typically?
We haven't shipped anything like specifically overseas. So if there's something overseas that you like, that maybe you've traveled or whatever, contact that winery and see if they have someone here that distributes or
okay.
imports. Usually they have a delivery service like in the U.S. Like for wineries in South Africa that we enjoy, we know the importers here, and we can get the wine shipped easily because you're not going to find good South African wine.
Well, I
in the store.
know Harris Teeter opened up 201 Central. It's like a wine and beer specialty store.
Oh, I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, there were 2 of them. I believe they closed one down because it was sort of an experiment. But I believe there's another one in Charlotte still. But I know that they would order whatever beer. I don't know about wine, but if you wanted a certain beer from around the world, they would find it and have it shipped. So yeah, that's great.
That's a good point to like talk to. If you have a local wine shop,
Yeah.
and you have developed a relationship, or even not, ask them if they can help you out and order something that you enjoy that you found somewhere else. A lot of times they're willing to do that.
Awesome.
Let's try it with one of these cheeses.
Okay.
It doesn't matter which one. This is the goat.
This is goat cheese?
It's a type, it's made with goat milk. It's not the soft goat cheese, but we eat a lot of goat and sheep cheese because my husband has a lactose issue. So, and plus I love the flavor of it. It's really good.
For anybody listening on the podcast and not watching, it's awesome.
It's just from,
right.
I think it was on sale at Whole Foods. Even with cheese, I like to experiment.
So why does cheese pair so well with wine?
I mean, a lot of things pair well with wine, but cheese has this like coating mechanism. I don't know if you noticed it, how it kind of coated your mouth because of its creaminess.
Yeah.
And depending on how much you chew it, and then depending on the type of cheese as well. And it's kind of like that milk thing with the toothpaste.
That's a good example.
It just like, it's easy to go with a lot of wines. It just coats your mouth. It just dilutes anything that's going in the wine. Usually it's going to dilute unless the cheese has a strong flavor. Now we have a blue cheese, the Saint Agur. That's going to do something different. It has a very strong flavor. It's got the creaminess. It's going to coat our mouth, but it has this strong flavor that may or may not go well with the profile of the wine.
Well, and I like to see a lot of the local restaurants as well. I know at Kindred, they have a cheese platter. At least prior to the pandemic, they would bring it out and show you the variety, and you could choose and buy it by the ounce. And, you know, they would give you this sort of the history. And a lot of these, I think you mentioned earlier, some of the cheeses are like, oh yeah, it doesn't even have a name. It's just from this cow in Statesville.
Yeah.
And it's really good. So
I love that.
It's great. It's got a little story and it's local.
Yeah.
I love to see that. It's great.
When we lived in Prague, we had a farmer's market down the street that was 6 days a week or something. So any day of the week, go and pick up local cheeses. Yeah. From the farmer.
Yeah.
Charcuterie, I forgot the charcuterie today, but the charcuterie, like just smoked, like salami or whatever it was, whatever kind of meats they were. Just, they'd let you taste it, take some home, they slice it up for you however you wanted it.
Awesome.
And like, we love charcuterie, like real charcuterie boards. I'm really disappointed in the charcuterie boards in the U.S. Honestly, the quality of the meats, for the most part, I'm not saying everywhere, the quality of the meats and the cheeses and the quantity that you get, you're paying like $30 or $40 for a charcuterie or cheese board here. And it's like, okay, it was like 2 bites of each item.
And like some olives.
It just pisses me off. It's like not even a great experience. So, but I mean,
that word charcuterie, where does that come from? What is that? Just the meat part, or
it just refers to smoked meat.
Okay,
not a specific type or whatever, just a smoked meat.
So I feel like before 5 years ago, I'd never heard that word, and now everybody says it.
And you know, in Europe, like they've been doing this thing forever.
Sure.
Like we went to, oh God, what's the country? Anyway, I can't remember. Not Croatia, Serbia. So we have some friends whose the husband is from Serbia originally. He still has his parents there. They make their own charcuterie. So they had us over to his parents' house when we went to go visit them. And we had the meat that him and his brother had smoked and cured and raised. And it was amazing. It's just, I don't know. And that's how this like whole Corks and Boards thing originated, because the food and the wine and good company, that's the perfect combination. Like I don't need an extravagant meal with my drink to do pairing. All I need, like, you know, I can drink longer if I have a little bit of food.
And a story goes a long way too. I know in regards to farming and raising the animals, a good friend of mine grew up in a farm in North Carolina. And if you go to a restaurant with this guy, he will not leave meat on the table because he raised those animals and he knows like that thing gave its life. We're not going to leave strips of bacon. We'll take them home and eat it later. You know, even at a restaurant, that's the way he does. So there's a lot more story and respect for
the respect. Yeah, it's huge. My parents live on a ranch in Mississippi, and my dad raises cattle to butcher for beef. And my grandfather did it as well. So I have a huge respect for good quality meat. I will not order a steak in a restaurant. I don't even cook steak at my own house for the most part. It's only when I go to my parents' house and my dad makes me steak, because it is different.
It's different.
It tastes different. And that cow was treated nice, and he had a big,
Totally.
I mean,
well, you hear all the time, I love to watch cooking shows and stuff, and you hear chefs all the time say, I just put passion and love into my cooking. And it's like, it's hard to quantify that, but how this lady on this most recent Netflix barbecue thing just says, I just put myself into this barbecue. And you think there must be something to that. Yeah. Because clearly it's better than just something off the shelf.
And you taste the love and the passion that she put in it.
It's so crazy but I don't know if it's in our head or not, but I think there's more to it.
I think there is too. So
what do we try next? We want to try this cheese?
Let's try, we haven't tried the manchego yet. I love manchego. I love manchego cheese. It's Spanish cheese. So one thing with food and wine pairing, the easiest thing to think about is, where did a food originate? So this is manchego cheese from Spain. What wine do they drink in Spain? So Rioja, red Rioja, very spicy wine. They also have cava. These are two very popular wines, Tempranillo, grapes. So the easiest thing when you think about food and wine pairing is, where did a food, if I'm going to start with food, what am I cooking? What am I eating? Then what am I going to pair with it? I'm going to think, where did this similar dish originate and what wine are they drinking there? Because that's going to go together. What grows together goes together, they say.
Okay.
Yeah. Or if you're starting with the wine, if I want to drink this and then figure out what am I going to eat with it, that'll pair well. Because the other thing is, you drink what you want and you eat what you want, and you're happy, right? Like no dish has been ruined by drinking the wrong wine with it. But your experience can be heightened if you pair the things well. So you can say, where did this originate and what are they eating there? So it's an easy thing to think about.
So when you go to a restaurant, do you start with what wine you want to have and then choose your food, or kind of depend? What's your preference?
This is going to be funny. I don't always drink wine when I'm at a restaurant.
No, that's okay.
And one of the reasons is it's so overpriced in the restaurant. Okay. Like,
fair
that's
enough,
just, The other is reasonably priced wines, because they have to mark it up a lot, right? They're just not good. Kindred really has a fantastic wine list. She knows her stuff. She's a sommelier, and so they have really great wine lists. But a lot of times I won't, because I know the wines and I know they're not good quality.
Sure.
So usually I play with cocktails when I'm in restaurants. But I do sometimes drink wine in a restaurant. Yeah, isn't that weird? Is that weird?
No, it's not weird. No. Yeah.
We
wouldn't expect you to drink wine all times.
It's kind of like, if you know about, and as you do know about coffee, are you willingly...
Sometimes I drink tea, yes.
Are you... Okay. But are you willingly going to go to Starbucks and pay $6 for something that doesn't taste as good and isn't as good of quality as from Good Drip?
Well,
or
sometimes your hands are tied, and you're
sometimes, willingly. That's why I said willingly. Like, are you going to crave going to Starbucks and buying this? No.
Well, and there's times, again, to the experience. There's times when you're like, okay, this is a special occasion. I'm with my friends.
Right.
One of them just got a new job or whatever it is. We're going to celebrate. Yes. We're going to get a shot of some whiskey or some wine or something that's extra special, where you could buy a whole bottle of it for that price. It's about the location, the experience.
Right. And sometimes we do it, but for every day, because I know, I'm just like...
But on a typical, let's take the restaurant out of it. Do you start with the wine and then plan the meal around it, or do you go the other way, or does it just depend?
It just depends. So I do like to cook while drinking some bubbles. Usually, if it's just an everyday, I'll drink Prosecco. And I am known for drinking the Purple Label Costco brand, Kirkland brand $6.99 Prosecco. And I think it's totally fine. You know, it's no special day. I'm just cooking dinner. And I'm probably going to drink this whole bottle by myself. Maybe I'll share a glass with my husband. Or if we're on the boat, you know, and you're mixing with orange juice or whatever for mimosas in the morning, you don't use a expensive bottle.
Use expensive, yeah.
So usually if I'm cooking, I start with bubbles. Sometimes I pair and sometimes I don't, honestly. And that's the whole thing. Like sometimes I just drink, like I am craving.
Just whatever you like. Yeah.
Like a Sauvignon Blanc. And that's what I'm going to drink.
Well, no, and with cheeses, my wife's father's from the Netherlands. And so the Americans call it Gouda. Gouda.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's so my wife's aunt and uncle live in the town of Gouda, and there's cheese shops in the town. It's an old town that was not destroyed in World War II. It's a beautiful town, but they have like the cheese wheels hanging.
I love that.
In the street. It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
But it was so funny because when you go there, it's like, wow, that's cheese, and they have all these different flavors in the cheese shop in the city with the cheese name, and then they came to visit us in the States, and we took them to Walmart, and he said, there is the cheese from our town.
Oh, you found the good quality cheese from your town?
Yeah, on the regular shelf at Walmart.
What?
He said, this stuff is...
Oh, I thought he was going to like put his nose up to it.
I
like,
was
this is crap.
actually really proud of Walmart. He said, this is high quality. This is Gouda cheese.
Wow.
And it's like from Gouda. It's not like a fake.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, that's really good.
That's impressive.
Modern shipping, I suppose.
Yes.
But yeah. So what do we try next? So we want to try this
Let's do
blue
this
cheese?
blue cheese before we do the chocolate.
Okay.
So you can use this knife and just like cut a piece and then.
Yeah. So I
and
have
usually,
a little...
Yeah, go ahead.
A story about blue cheese.
Oh.
Should I put it on a cracker or just take
You can. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's probably better. It'll change the flavor a bit.
There's a restaurant. I won't name it because it's not a good story, but they serve nachos. Local? It's not super local. It's more like North Charlotte. Okay. But anyway, it's just a bar, sports bar. Okay. But they have blue cheese nachos, and it does not work. Blue cheese should not be on nachos, especially that quantity. It's just, yeah. So awesome.
I love blue cheese with honey because it like adds some sweetness and like kind of masks the flavor a bit. But
that's great. Super strong.
Do you like blue cheese?
I like blue cheese, yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah. Yeah, I heard actually Gary Vaynerchuk say, when you're looking at wines, he was even saying certain wines pair well. Like if you're having a cigar and the cigar is just like taking all the flavor up, you need something that's super strong to cut through that cigar smoke, versus if you're having wine and cheese or you're having something more delicate, you would go with something not as bold. So I thought that was interesting too, because yeah, it's just whatever you like. You can just try different things.
Honestly,
you know?
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. It's about an experiment. Like there are hundreds of wine regions around the world. There's thousands of wineries and wine producers around the world. Like it's intimidating, you know? But the thing is for me is it's about experimenting. Like you find what it's fun. Like that's cool. That's the cool factor. Is there's so much to experiment. So like, don't be intimidated. Just have some fun with it.
So as a mom and as a guy with a wife and 3 kids and a dog, how do you find time to do this and sit and enjoy instead of just rushing and trying to get the macaroni and cheese in the pot and have a glass of wine and not even pay attention to it? How do you find the time to sit down and actually enjoy it this way? Or do you find that time?
Well, since the baby, it's a little bit harder. Usually it's more when we have friends and like we have a babysitter and like, or like kids are in bed. The past 9 months, 10 months, how long has it been? You've been in a pandemic? I don't even know. The baby's 8 months, so it's at least 8 months. It's hard lately. And you'd think like when we first got in this whole thing and we're, staying at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, this is kind of cool, right? We're forced to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
We're forced to enjoy each other's company a little more, right?
Yep.
Versus like getting the kid to school, like focusing on work, get dinner ready, pick the kid up, like have dinner, wash, take showers, go to bed. It wasn't quite that way, I think, for most people
Right.
because they're overwhelmed because we're now and have our children and have work and all these other stresses on top of everything else. So I think the last 8 months is actually, for me personally, it has been harder. We have lately, after we felt comfortable getting a babysitter and only have one and feel comfortable with her and like,
Yep.
because for our sanity, we needed to get out.
Yeah.
Because we always had our kids, right? And that's hard. And when 8 o'clock comes around and Harrison goes to bed, I just want to go to bed.
Yeah. Same here.
You know, like I don't want to do this. I want to get my sleep before
Right.
the baby wakes up, especially having an infant. So it's been hard lately, but we've found ways to get out recently with friends and that experience. My mom's in town for Thanksgiving, so she took the kids Saturday, and we had dinner with another couple, some friends of ours in Charlotte, and they cooked a meal, and we brought dessert and some wines and did a little food pairing exercise, and it was just so fun. But
That's great.
it was just being present. Like, it's hard to be present these days.
Well, I know for us, I mean, it's virtually impossible with young kids, but to try to find a little, even in like a space in your house that, like for us, maybe it's the back porch or whatever, where it's just, let's get away. We can see the kids and take a minute. It's really important. Mental health these days.
Yeah. Like I'm doing my classes out of my office. And my husband and I share our office. Some of my classes, the corporate classes, some of them are during the day, depending. Some of them are at night. But at night he'll take the kids. I'll shut the door and I'll have my classes. A few weeks ago, I was doing a food and wine pairing, and for my sweet, I had some cotton candy on my plate. And my 5-year-old,
I saw that.
You saw that picture? My 5-year-old saw, we did a little reel or video. I'm not sure what we did on Instagram, but my son is really into food and wine pairing. He's like, Mommy, can we do a cheese tasting, please? Like we did a cake tasting one day. I have a video somewhere of that. He's big in the because he grew up like he was at Michelin rated restaurants at like 1 year old. Like just he knows how to act in a restaurant, but he also is open food wise. He loves to make mocktails. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he saw this cotton candy, so he's like, Mommy, I'm gonna help you on your tasting tonight. I'm like, honey, it is time to go to bed. So it wasn't
your idea.
It is time to go to bed. I know you see that cotton candy and that's why you want to help Mommy with your wine tasting, but you can have some cotton candy tomorrow. It's
How did it work out?
good. Yeah, cotton candy was interesting because usually it's like when I'm teaching, I'm like you want to focus when you're teaching the concept and the principles on one flavor at a time. So like, for instance, for spice, it's just red pepper flakes, salt, chocolate, salted potato chip is fine, or just salt granules. For acid, we're going to use a lemon slice. Very simple. Mm-hmm. Usually I don't use like cheese or charcuterie or anything because it mixes flavors together just to teach the principles. But for sweet, one time I use like just an angel food cake, something that's sweet but doesn't have like a lot of chocolate or any other flavors. I have this thing for cotton candy, and I had some cotton candy in the pantry, so I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. And maybe I was craving cotton candy, but
it's so modern. I love it. I saw it.
Cotton candy. It's so like, okay. I have it.
No, it's great. Candy. So what about the rosemary? Is that just decoration or is that for tasting, smelling?
It's a little pretty.
Love rosemary. Have you ever grown rosemary?
Yes.
I mean, it's a great shrub.
Yes,
and
it is.
It's not a 1 year, you can have it over and over and it continues to grow. If you,
Well,
of course,
for
have a
me,
green thumb.
not,
Yeah.
but because I kill
Or not,
everything
yeah.
green. But so when we're making boards and we're making them pretty, which this one's kind of a mix of pretty and functional, we like to add greenery because it just, one, it fills out the board. Two, it adds some color. Three, it adds aroma.
Yeah.
So that's why it's there. And I had it in my fridge. So I'm like, I'm
great.
going to add it to the board.
Awesome.
It's just a little pretty stuff.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Something live. Okay, that blue cheese was really good. I didn't need honey for
was
that
great.
combination, right?
It was awesome.
What's your favorite combination so far?
I love the blue cheese so far. It's great. Yeah, it's very good.
Okay, let's do this chocolate thing because I haven't tried this combination, but some students from my last class thought this combination went really well. And
Okay.
I was slightly surprised actually. So let's try it. This has some salt. It has almond and it's dark chocolate. So we've got bitter, we've got salt. So we've got mixture of flavors.
Yeah, it just enhances every flavor. Like I tasted the almonds and then the dark chocolate, but like it kind of punched a little bit harder
It
with
punched
the
the
wine.
wine, right?
Yeah.
So this is for people that like that acid punch because for me, it accentuated the acid in that bubbly thing that happens because this bitterness, because this is a rosé, it has some tannins in it. So typically a white wine will not have tannins. Tannins come from the skins of grapes. And it's that drying sensation that happens in your gums.
Yeah.
Because this is a rosé, it sat on the skins for a little bit. So it has a little bit of tannin. It doesn't have a lot. Tannins are bitter.
What do you mean by sat on the skins?
So the juice and the skins are in the fermentation.
They're together.
Yeah.
Okay.
They sit there because that skin gives it color. So as soon as they get the color that they like, they take the juice out. They separate the skins.
I see. Yeah.
Because if you left it, it would turn red.
Got it.
It'd be red wine. So because the skin sat a little bit, it does have a little bit of tannin. It has a little bit of complexity to this wine. It has some weight versus if it was white and they took the skins off right away, it wouldn't have. So this bitterness thing is one component. So this is why when I teach these principles, I prefer to taste single flavors.
Yeah.
Versus when we taste this, we've got 3 different flavors in this
Yeah,
chocolate.
I could tell the difference. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is what happens when we're pairing a dish, because a dish has multiple flavors. So you're trying to look at what's the most impactful or the strongest flavor in this chocolate. I don't know. It's probably, is it the bitter or the salt? It's not too bitter.
Yeah. I feel like that time I tasted the salt first.
I know. It kind of depends where you bite it, right?
Yeah. Very good.
But it's much more acidic, this, and it's still really good, versus when we paired it with this blue cheese. Mm-hmm. It reduced that acidity and made this rounder and softer. Did you think?
Yeah, for sure.
So I just think that's fun, right?
It is. It's a lot of fun. That's
Like,
great. Yeah.
And I think it's an awesome conversation point. Like we have friends over, we're having a dinner date with another couple. To have these conversations while we're eating, drinking, and having other conversations, be like, wow, try this. And then we layer flavors. So we might have some jam, we might have some honey, we might have a bigger board, some meat, whatever. Oh, try this combination.
Yeah.
See what you think.
No,
That's
It
fun.
is a lot of fun. It's great.
Yeah. So a lot of my holiday events are centered around, I select some holiday centered wines, and then I do a food and wine pairing. So I describe all the principles, and then either I tell them to do their basic board with the individual flavors that they can just pull out of their pantry, or some people prefer to, I'm partnering with a company out of Cornelius called Sunrays Foods. And they make lamb charcuterie. I was telling you earlier, I forgot that today. They raise lamb on grass, on fields in North Carolina, close to where we live, on solar farms. Yes, solar farms.
Got it.
And they raise these lamb on the solar farms, and then they make this charcuterie from it. So it's very happy lambs. They're raised on sunshine and grass.
Yeah.
Happy. Makes happy charcuterie.
Yeah. What's the name of the company again?
Sunrays Foods.
Sunrays Foods.
And they are located, they have a little shop. It's hard to find, but it's over, you know where Goddard is?
Mm-hmm.
Cornelius, kind of where you send your girls to preschool. They have a location over there by, the brewery, Lost World.
Oh, yeah.
Across from Lost World.
Okay, great. Yeah.
And then they do boxes where it has other local ingredients like local honey, some crackers, some other items. And so I'm partnering with them because some companies want something nicer for the holidays.
Right.
And then I have a new partnership with Davidson Wine Co.
Awesome.
Out of Davidson.
Yep.
Lindsay Williams is, she used to be a lawyer. She changed careers, so it's very familiar. And she's now making wine here locally. Awesome. And so I'm partnering with her. I'm working with her distributor and her to select wines for some of these events. And she ships wine now. She just started shipping. So that's really exciting.
That's great that you partner with those people because you don't sell wine. I
don't sell wine.
I remember distinctly when I first met you, you're like, I don't sell wine.
Yeah.
You sell the experience and the education.
Yeah.
So Davidson Wine Company, Kindred, all the local restaurants. Get your wine from there. Harris Teeter. Now, let me ask you about this. The number, I know their wines are given a weight, like 90%, 92, whatever. I've noticed Harris Teeter has those. I learned that from that documentary where they get a score. How much validity do we put into that score?
I'll just say is another data point for you. Like if you're in a store and you don't know the brand, you have no idea, you have to use something to make a decision, right? It's either the label. It's what they say on the back of the label. It's a sign that says, this is Jasmine's favorite wine, right. Someone who works at the store.
Yeah.
Or where it says it's 92 points rated by Wine Enthusiast or whoever, James Suckling or whatever. You have to use something to make a decision if you don't know. If you know it, one is you've already drank it.
Yep.
Or you've heard about it through a podcast or through research or a magazine, which is cool. And then you're stuck with what you don't know. Like maybe you know the region. So it goes back to our conversation earlier about, okay, I know the region. It's cool. It's hot.
Yep.
I might like this variety, or I've never had this variety. I've never had a wine I picked up a bottle from Macedonia, from a small wine shop in southern Alabama, in Fairhope, Alabama. Yes, a few months ago. I've never had a wine from Macedonia. Also, it's a different wine making method of this wine. I don't even remember the varietal or whatever, but the guy that was working there was like, well, it's a red wine in a clear bottle. You don't do that. Okay, so what's different about this bottle? Okay, I'm picking this up because I'm an experience. I think it was some kind of carbonic maceration of the... Anyway, I'm going to research it and I'm going to taste it and see if I like it.
And if you like it, you like it.
And if I like it, I like it. I'll buy more of it.
It's sort of like with cheap food, there's sometimes you want a gourmet hamburger and sometimes you want Wendy's.
Exactly. And that's cool. Like my $6.99 Prosecco. Hey, I'm cooking dinner. I just want my $6.99 Prosecco.
Right.
Like I'm cool with that. Like we're not going to be fancy.
And unfortunately, I like cool labels. So sometimes I'll get a cool label and it,
Hey, it's marketing, right?
Yeah.
Marketing. What was I going to say? Over the summer, a friend of mine introduced me to orange wine. a lot of people, I kind of knew what it was, but I'd never had experienced it before.
Orange in color?
Orange in color. You're right. Because most people were like, oh, this is made from oranges. No, it's orange in color, which is weird. And when we taste wine, the first thing is we look at it, then we smell it, and then we taste it. Well, when we look at a color, at each step along the way, we can make inferences about the color. So we can make an inference, and when we look at it, we turn it to the side, and we'll look down underneath, and usually we have a white piece of paper. But usually an oranger tint, especially a browner tint, hence age. Anyway, this friend brought this orange bottle, and it's actually made in Virginia, and it was awesome. So orange wine is made from green grapes, but they've sat on the skins. It's called skin contact wine. For white wine, you don't sit your grapes on the skins. You don't. They press it and then they ferment it, versus rosé or red. So orange comes from whatever pigment is coming out from the green, turns the wine kind of orangish. It is so interesting. And over the summer, so because she introduced me to that, and it was from Virginia. I've been wanting to go to Virginia, to the Montebello Wine Trail around Charlottesville.
Okay.
We ended up going to Virginia actually in June or July. Yeah, during the pandemic. My son was, my 5-year-old was with my parents in Mississippi. And so we just had the infant, and he was tiny, and, you know, you can take him anywhere when they're that age. And yeah, we explored the Montebello Trail, and I bought some of that orange. I should have bought more. Again, it's my husband, like, hold me back. On the wine purchases.
Yeah, I want to try some now too.
Can
you
you
get it
Next
locally
time
or no?
I haven't seen it here.
Okay,
It's
so we'll
small batch. It's small batch stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have some one day. It's really with your wife. My husband didn't like it too much, but it's when you drink white wine, you don't expect this complexity, and it's very different. It's very unique.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. But that's what happens when we experiment.
That's right. Well, hey, this has been awesome. Stephanie Roberts, Corks and Boards. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers to you.
Thanks so much again.
Good luck at the holidays. Christmas is around the corner. So if anybody listening or watching wants more information, Corks and Boards on Instagram.
Corks and Boards, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or corksandboards@gmail.com.
Cool. Yeah. And of course, this podcast is sponsored by Atlas Technology Solutions, my company. So wine and technology don't go together. You're supposed to put your phone away and enjoy the people. So
true, but
thank you for your time, and this has been a pleasure. Best of luck to you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.